A strict father pressured his daughter to accept an arranged marriage. He chose a deaf-mute man for her. Initially, she was quite insecure and had doubts, but on their wedding night, he said something that left her in tears. Before watching this passionate story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more exciting tales. Emily gazed at her reflection in the oval mirror of her bedroom, adjusting the pearl necklace her mother had given her for the 10th time. Her fingers trembled slightly as she tried to fasten the delicate clasp. Outside the Johnsons' mansion, preparations for the formal dinner were already underway. Servants scurried back and forth, setting the main table with the family's finest china. "Emily, are you ready yet?" The authoritative voice of her father, Robert Johnson, echoed down the hallway. "The Taylor family will arrive in 20 minutes. "I'm just finishing up, Dad," she replied, feeling a knot form in her throat. At 25 years old, Emily never imagined her life would take this turn. With a degree in architecture and a promising career ahead of her, she now found herself about to accept an agreement that would change her destiny forever. Her father, a traditional businessman in the construction industry, had arranged her marriage to the only son of the Taylors, one of the country's most influential families. The detail that made her heart ache. She had never met her future fiancé in person. All she knew about Michael Taylor came from photographs and stories told by others. Michael was deaf-mute from birth, a fact her father insisted on, minimizing, repeatedly stating that the Taylor fortune compensated for any minor inconvenience. Emily adjusted the navy blue dress she had carefully chosen for the occasion. The fine silk fabric fell gracefully over her slender body, accentuating her natural elegance. Her long brown hair was pulled back in an elaborate updo, exposing her delicate neck. "Sweetheart." This time it was her mother, Elizabeth, entering the room. Unlike her husband's authoritative tone, her voice carried a mixture of concern and guilt. "You look beautiful." Emily forced a smile. "Thank you, Mom." Elizabeth approached, adjusting a loose strand of her daughter's hair. "I know this isn't how you dreamed it would be." "Please, Mom," Emily interrupted, trying to hold back the tears that threatened to ruin her. "Perfectly applied makeup. You don't need to say anything. I understand the company's situation. I understand that Dad needs this merger with the Taylors." The Johnson Company had been experiencing financial difficulties for months, something Robert was trying to hide from society at all costs. The merger with the Taylor empire was his last hope of avoiding bankruptcy. Emily knew that her marriage was in fact a business deal disguised as a family union. The sound of cars arriving at the mansion's entrance made both women start. Emily took a deep breath, adjusting her dress one more time. "They're here," Elizabeth whispered, gently squeezing her daughter's shoulder. Emily descended the stairs with measured steps, each step seeming like an eternity. In the main hall, her father was already greeting the Taylors with his best performance as a cheerful host. It was then that she saw him in person for the first time. Michael Taylor stood near the fireplace, wearing an impeccably tailored suit that accentuated his elegant posture. His eyes, a deep brown, immediately met hers. There was something in his gaze that surprised her, an intensity, a depth that photographs couldn't capture. "Emily, darling," her father called, extending his hand towards her. "Come meet your future husband." With her heart beating erratically, Emily approached. Michael observed her with a serene, almost contemplative expression. When she stopped in front of him, he did something unexpected. He took a small card from his pocket and handed it to her with a gentle gesture. On the card, written in elegant handwriting, was the message. "It's a pleasure to finally meet you, Emily. Your beauty surpasses the descriptions I was given." Emily felt her cheeks flush as a shy smile formed on her lips. Michael responded with an equally gentle smile, his eyes conveying a warmth she hadn't expected to find. The evening proceeded with formal conversations about the future wedding, arrangements, and plans. Emily observed how Michael communicated with her parents through a sign language interpreter, noting the grace of his movements and the intelligence that shone in his eyes with each response. While the adults discussed dates and preparations, Emily found herself imagining what her life would be like beside this man who couldn't speak, but whose eyes seemed to say so much. The fear and apprehension were still there, but now there was something more, a curiosity, perhaps even a small flame of hope. At the end of the evening, as the Taylors were saying goodbye, Michael handed Emily another card. I hope to get to know you better in the coming days. There's so much I'd like to share with you." Emily kept the card along with the first one, feeling that this evening had changed something inside her. The silence that had frightened her so much was beginning to take on new meanings, and she wondered if perhaps there were forms of communication deeper than words could express. In the week following the formal dinner, Emily found herself immersed in a completely new world. Her routine, previously filled with architectural projects and client meetings, now included intensive sign language classes. It was a decision she made on her own, surprising both her parents and the Taylors. "You didn't need to go to all this trouble," her father commented during breakfast, casually flipping through the newspaper. "The Taylor family always keeps interpreters around." Emily stirred her coffee thoughtfully before responding, "I don't want to depend on intermediaries to communicate with my future husband, Dad. It would be like living eternally through translations." Emily's determination to learn sign language didn't go unnoticed by Michael. In their meetings, always chaperoned as tradition dictated, he showed infinite patience with her attempts at communication. Each small progress was celebrated with a warm smile that inexplicably made her heart race. On a particularly pleasant afternoon, they met in the garden of the Taylor mansion. The place was a true green paradise, with carefully cultivated flowers and a central fountain that provided a relaxing melody with its constant murmur of water. The interpreter, Mrs. Clara, a grey-haired lady with a gentle smile, kept a discreet distance. Emily had learned the basics in her intensive classes and was eager to attempt a more direct conversation with Michael. With still hesitant movements, she signed, "The garden is very beautiful." Michael's face lit up at her effort. He responded with gentle gestures, slowing down so she could follow. "My mother dedicates a lot of time to this place. Each flower has a story." Emily watched his hands move gracefully in the air, creating a silent dance that was beginning to make sense to her. Michael stood up and invited her for a walk among the flower beds. Stopping near a cluster of purple orchids, he began to tell a story through signs. Mrs. Clara translated softly, "These orchids were planted on the day I was born. My mother says they're special because, like me, they found their own way to express themselves in the world." Emily felt her eyes fill with tears at the beauty of that thought. Trying to express her feelings, she made the signs she had recently learned. They are perfect just the way they are. The smile Michael directed at her in that moment had the power to melt away all her insecurities. He gently took her hand and led her to a marble bench near the fountain. From his pocket, he took out a small notebook and a pen, something Emily noticed he always carried with him. "Sometimes," he wrote, "the most important words are those that don't need to be said or signed." Emily ran her fingers over the written words, feeling a growing connection with this man that fate had placed in her path. With each meeting, she discovered new layers of his personality, his gentleness, his subtle humor, his sharp intelligence. During that afternoon, they developed their own form of communication, a mixture of basic signs, written words, and looks that said more than any language could express. Michael showed her his world through gestures and smiles, and Emily was surprised to realize how comforting that silence could be. As the sun began to set, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink, Michael wrote one last message in his notebook. "You are transforming my silence into something extraordinary." Emily kept those words not just in the pocket of her dress, but also in her heart. On the way back home, she reflected on how her initial fears now seemed so distant. What she once saw as a limitation was revealing itself to be a unique and special form of connection. In her room that night, Emily opened a new sketchbook and began to draw. Her strokes, previously dedicated only to architectural projects, now gave life to a garden of purple orchids. Beside the drawing, she wrote, "Sometimes destiny presents its plans in the most unexpected way possible." The wedding was still a business arrangement in her father's eyes, a necessity to save the family business. But for Emily, something was changing. Amidst the silence, she was beginning to hear the melody of a new feeling, something that was growing as naturally as the orchids in the Taylor's garden. As the wedding preparations advanced, Emily discovered there was much more to Michael than she had imagined. During a lunch at the Taylor mansion, her future mother-in-law, Caroline Taylor, shared family albums that revealed precious fragments of her fiancé's history. "Michael has always been extraordinary," Caroline commented, gently turning the pages of the leather-bound album. From a young age, he refused to let his condition limit him. The photographs told a story of determination. Michael learning to swim, Michael in chess competitions, Michael graduating with honors in business administration. In each image, his eyes conveyed the same intensity that had caught Emily's attention at their first meeting. "You know, dear," Caroline continued, stopping at a specific photo where Michael, still a teenager, was sitting at the piano. "He may not hear the music, but he feels every vibration." He developed his own method of playing, guided by the vibrations of the piano strings. Emily looked surprised at the photograph, then at Michael, who was following the conversation through Mrs. Clara's signs. He smiled and stood up, extending his hand in a silent invitation. He led Emily to an adjacent room where a grand black piano took center stage. Sitting at the instrument, Michael positioned his hands over the keys. Emily watched, fascinated, as he began to play. Even without hearing the notes, his fingers danced over the keyboard with impressive precision. The melody that filled the room was soft and emotional. "Beethoven," whispered Caroline, who had followed them. "Moonlight Sonata." Michael learned it by observing the vibrations and studying the score exhaustively. Emily felt silent tears running down her face. Michael continued playing, his eyes closed, completely immersed in the vibrations that only he could feel in that unique way. When the last note dissipated in the air, he opened his eyes and met Emily's emotional gaze. With gestures that she was beginning to understand better, Michael explained, "Music is everywhere, not just in sounds. It's in the vibrations, in the movements, in the feelings." That afternoon, Emily learned more about Michael through family stories and old photographs. She discovered his passion for photography, a way of capturing the beauty of the world through his eyes. She saw impressive images he had recorded on his travels around the world. "He has always seen life differently," explained Richard Taylor, her future father-in-law, showing a portfolio of artistic photographs taken by Michael. "Where some see limitations, he sees possibilities." Among the photographs, one in particular caught Emily's attention. It was a black and white image of two intertwined hands, captured with such sensitivity that it seemed to tell a love story without the need for words. Michael took his notebook and wrote, "I took this photo thinking about how hands can express so much. They are like silent voices telling stories of love, friendship, compassion." Emily looked at her own hands, which were now learning a new way of speaking through signs. She realized how each gesture, each movement, carried deep meanings that had previously gone unnoticed. At the end of the afternoon, when she was about to leave, Michael surprised her with a gift, an old, perfectly preserved camera. "For you to start your own collection of silent moments," he wrote in the notebook. On the way home, Emily reflected on how her perception of Michael had transformed. The man she initially saw as an imposition of fate was revealing himself to be a deep and sensitive soul, capable of seeing and expressing beauty in ways she had never imagined. In her room, Emily placed the camera on her desk next to the sketchbook where she was drawing the orchid garden. She took the photo album that Michael had given her as a gift, filled with images he had captured over the years. Each photograph seemed to tell a story, revealing a piece of his soul. That night, before going to sleep, Emily began writing in her diary, something she hadn't done in years. Perhaps the true miracle isn't making someone hear or speak, but learning to listen with the heart and speak with the soul. The wedding was approaching, and with it, a growing certainty that this agreement that had begun as an obligation was transforming into something much more significant. In the silence of her room, Emily smiled as she realized she was looking forward not to the event itself, but to all the silent stories that were yet to come. The clock struck 3 in the morning when Emily woke with a start. The anxiety about the wedding, which would take place in just 2 weeks, was beginning to manifest in sleepless nights. She picked up the camera Michael had given her and walked to her room's balcony. The full moon bathed the garden in its silvery light, creating mysterious shadows among the trees. Emily adjusted the settings on the old camera, exactly as Michael had taught her, and began to photograph. Through the lens, the world seemed different, more poetic, more meaningful. As she photographed, her mind wandered to the previous afternoon, when she had had a revealing conversation with Amanda, her best friend since childhood. "You're different, Emily," Amanda had commented during coffee at their favorite bakery. Your eyes, they have a new sparkle. Emily absently stirred her teacup before responding. It's strange, Amanda. When Dad told me about this arranged marriage, I thought it would be the end of my life. Now you're in love, Amanda completed with an understanding smile. The word in love echoed in her mind, making her heart race. Was it true? Was she really falling in love with Michael? The past few weeks had been a constant discovery. Each meeting revealed a new facet of him that enchanted her even. More back to the present. On her room's balcony, Emily photographed the moon reflected in the pool. Michael had taught her that photography wasn't just about capturing images, but about telling stories through light and shadow, about finding beauty in details that went unnoticed. Her cell phone vibrated with a message. It was Michael. Can't sleep either. Emily smiled. It was as if he could sense her restlessness even from a distance. She responded with a photo she had just taken of the moon, accompanied by the message, "Learning to see the world through your eyes." His response came in the form of a quote. The true language of love needs no words. It expresses itself in small gestures, in looks, in shared silence. In recent weeks, her sign language classes had progressed significantly. Emily was surprised by the richness and complexity of this form of communication. Each sign carried not only meaning, but emotion, intensity, nuances that spoken words didn't always manage to express. During their meetings, now more frequent, they developed a connection that transcended the need for interpreters. Michael taught her about photography, about how to capture the essence of moments, while she shared with him her passion for architecture, explaining through drawings and gestures how each line and shape told a story. The night before, during a dinner at the Taylor house, Michael had surprised her with a gesture that left everyone emotional. He had prepared a slideshow with photographs he had taken secretly in recent weeks. They were images of Emily, smiling during sign language classes, concentrated on drawing in the garden, chatting animatedly with Mrs. Clara. Each photograph was accompanied by a message written by him, revealing how he saw her through his lens. Your determination to learn my language showed me that there are different ways to say I care, said one of the captions. Now alone on her balcony, Emily realized that the initial fear had transformed into something completely different. The silence that had scared her so much at the beginning now seemed full of meaning, of possibilities, of unspoken but deeply felt promises. She took her sketchbook and began to sketch the design of a house. It wasn't work for any client, but a dream that was beginning to take shape in her mind. A house that combined her knowledge of architecture with Michael's photographic sensitivity. Large windows to capture natural light, spaces that privileged visual communication, a photography studio integrated with the architecture office. The hours passed unnoticed as she drew, lost in thoughts about the future. When the first rays of sun began to tint the sky, Emily had filled several pages with sketches and notes. Her cell phone vibrated again. It was another message from Michael. Good morning. I spent the night photographing the stars and thinking of you. Each constellation reminds me of one of your smiles. Emily smiled, realizing that Amanda was right. She was falling in love, not just with Michael, but with the person she was becoming beside him. Someone who saw beauty in silence, who found poetry in the simplest gestures, who was learning to communicate with the heart. She photographed the sunrise and sent the image to Michael with the message, "Each dawn brings a new way to say what words can't express." A week before the wedding, Emily found something that would change her perspective on the whole situation. She was helping her mother organize some old documents in her father's office when a yellowed envelope fell out of a folder. The name Taylor, handwritten on the front, caught her attention. With trembling hands, she opened the envelope. Inside was a letter dated 25 years ago, written by Richard Taylor, Michael's father, addressed to Robert Johnson. The content made her heart race. Dear friend Robert, I will never forget what you did for me at that crucial moment. Your financial help saved not only my company but allowed me to provide my son Michael with all the special treatment and education he needed. I promise that one day I will repay your generosity. Our friendship will always be greater than any material value. Eternally grateful, Richard Taylor. Emily read the letter several times, trying to process the information. Her father, who now needed the tailor's help, had been the savior of Michael's family in the past. The story was more complex than she had imagined. "You shouldn't have seen that." Elizabeth's voice sounded soft behind her. Emily turned to find her mother with a melancholic expression. "Why didn't anyone tell me about this, Mum?" Elizabeth sat down beside her daughter, taking the letter in her hands. "Your father never wanted this story to come to light. For him, helping the Taylors at that time was an act of friendship, not an investment for the future. But now that we need them—" "Richard never forgot," Elizabeth gently interrupted. "When he learned of our company's difficulties, it was he who proposed the merger, and it was he who suggested the union between you and Michael." Emily felt tears forming in her eyes. "So it wasn't just a business deal?" "No, darling. Richard always said that Michael had a special fondness for you, even from afar. At business parties, he always discreetly observed you. Through the photographs he took in secret, Richard realized that his son had become enchanted with you long before this arrangement." The revelation hit Emily like a wave. All those photographs that Michael had shown, some dated years back. Social events, inaugurations, charity parties. She was there, captured by the lens of someone who admired her in silence. "Why did Michael never tell me?" "Maybe he wanted you to get to know him without the weight of this history," Elizabeth replied, "so that your feelings would develop naturally without influences from the past." Emily spent the rest of the afternoon in her room, mentally reviewing every moment shared with Michael over the past few months. The kindnesses, the looks, the patience in teaching her. Everything gained new meaning. She picked up her phone and typed a message to Michael. "Can we meet? I need to see you." The response was immediate. "I'll wait for you in the orchid garden in an hour." The sun was beginning to set when Emily arrived at the Taylor mansion. Michael was waiting for her on the same bench where they had shared so many silent conversations. Upon seeing her, his smile lit up, but it quickly turned to concern when he noticed her teary eyes. With gestures that now flowed naturally, Emily began to communicate. "Why did you never tell me about the old photographs, about how you observed me at parties?" Michael's face paled slightly. He took his notebook and wrote with trembling handwriting, "I was afraid you would think it was an obsession. I wanted you to get to know me without prejudices, without stories from the past." "For how long?" Emily signed. Michael hesitated before writing, "Since the first time I saw you 5 years ago at the inauguration of the Cultural Center. You were explaining the building's architecture to some children, using gestures to facilitate understanding. At that moment I realized you were special." Tears were now flowing freely down Emily's face. Michael continued writing, "Each photograph I took captured a moment when you demonstrated your kindness, your passion for architecture, your respect for others. But I never had the courage to approach you. Why? Because you deserved to choose your own path. I didn't want you to feel obligated to anything because of the history between our families." Emily looked at the man in front of her, seeing him in a new light. All this time, he had kept his feelings, patiently waiting, observing her through his lenses, capturing moments that told the story of a silent and deep love. The twilight painted the sky with shades of orange and pink when Emily finally found her voice, or rather her hands. With gestures that flowed more naturally than she ever imagined possible, she began to communicate with Michael. "All these years." Her fingers trembled slightly as she formed the signs. "You observed me, got to know me through your lenses while I didn't even know of your existence." Michael nodded slowly, his eyes conveying a mixture of apprehension and hope. He took his notebook and wrote, "I feared that if you knew, you would think it was some kind of stalking. I wanted that, if we ever met, it would be without the weight of this history." Emily took a deep breath, absorbing the magnitude of that revelation. She looked at the garden around her, at the orchids that now symbolized much more than just beautiful flowers. Each petal, each leaf seemed to tell a story of patience, of silent love, of waiting. "Show me," she signed, surprising herself with the sudden decision. "Show me the photographs." "All of them." Michael hesitated for a moment, then nodded in agreement. He stood up and extended his hand to Emily, guiding her inside the mansion. They climbed the stairs in silence, reaching a door that Emily had never noticed before. Upon opening it, Michael revealed an impeccably organized photography studio. The walls were covered with photographs, some framed, others just attached with small clips. In the center of the room, there was a light table where several images were spread out. Emily approached slowly, her eyes scanning each photograph. She saw herself in various moments over the years, smiling at an architecture fair, concentrated on drawing in a cafe, helping an elderly lady cross the street. Each image captured not just her appearance, but fragments of her essence. "How did you manage to be in all these places?" she asked through signs. Michael smiled shyly and wrote, "I wasn't always there. Some photos were taken by photographer friends who knew about my interest. They understood that I wanted to capture genuine moments, not poses." Emily continued exploring the studio, noticing how the more recent photographs, those taken after the wedding announcement, occupied a special space. In these, she could see the change in her own expression, the initial fear giving way to curiosity, and then to something deeper. She stopped in front of one particular image, herself sitting in the orchid garden, with her eyes closed and a serene smile on her lips. The sunlight created a golden halo around her, making her appear ethereal. "When was this?" she asked. "Last week," Michael wrote. "It was the moment I realized that maybe you were starting to feel something too." Emily felt her heart racing. She turned to Michael, who was watching her with a mixture of vulnerability and hope in his eyes. At that moment, all the doubts, all the fears she had carried since the announcement of the arranged marriage seemed to dissipate. With slow and deliberate movements, she signed, "I am. I'm feeling something I've never felt before." Michael's face lit up with a smile that seemed to radiate pure happiness. He approached her, gently taking her hands. For a long moment, they stood. Like that, communicating through touch, through looks, through the silence that now seemed more eloquent than any word could be. Finally, Michael released one of her hands to write, "From the first moment I saw you, I dreamed of this. But I wanted it to be real, to come from your heart, not from an obligation." Emily nodded, understanding deeply. She looked again at the photographs around her, each telling a part of her story, a story she didn't even know was being written. "What do we do now?" she asked, both with her hands and with her eyes. Michael smiled and wrote, "We continue our story, but now, together, aware, choosing each chapter." That night, as the sun set completely, casting the studio in a soft twilight, Emily and Michael remained there, immersed in a world of images and silent emotions. The wedding that once seemed like an obligation now revealed itself as the beginning of something deep and true. When they finally left the studio, hours later, Emily carried with her not only the revelations of that night, but also a new perspective on love, communication, and the infinite possibilities that silence could hold. The days that followed the revelation in Michael's studio were a symphony of emotions for Emily. A week away from the wedding, she found herself divided between frantic preparations and precious moments with her fiancé, now charged with new meaning. On a particularly busy afternoon, while trying on her wedding dress for the last time, Emily couldn't contain the smile that insisted on appearing on her lips. Elizabeth, her mother, noticed the change in her daughter's countenance. "You're radiant, dear," Elizabeth commented, delicately adjusting the veil. "It's as if all the apprehension had disappeared." Emily twirled gently, observing the reflection of the silk and lace dress in the mirror. "It's because I finally understood, Mom. I understood that sometimes destiny has better plans than ours." That night, after dinner, Emily surprised everyone by announcing that she would like to make a special presentation for the family. With her heart racing, she guided Michael, her parents, and the Taylors to the music room of the Johnson mansion. The grand piano, silent for years, occupied the center of the room. Emily had spent the last few weeks practicing in secret, determined to create a unique moment for Michael. "Michael," she signed, her hands trembling slightly with emotion, "you showed me that music goes beyond sound. Today I want to share something with you." Under the curious and emotional gazes of everyone, Emily sat at the piano. She took a deep breath, closed her eyes for a moment, and then began to play. The notes of Debussy's Clair de Lune filled the room, but the true spectacle was just beginning. As she played, Emily kept her eyes fixed on Michael. With a nod, she invited him to approach. She gently guided his hands to the side of the piano, where he could feel the vibrations of the music. Michael's eyes widened in understanding and emotion. He could feel each note, each change in the melody, through the vibrations that ran through the wood of the instrument. It was as if, for the first time, he could hear the music that Emily created. Silent tears ran down Caroline Taylor's face, while Richard held her hand, equally moved. Robert Johnson, always so rigid and controlled, couldn't hide the glimmer of pride in his eyes. When the last note dissipated in the air, there was a moment of reverent silence. Michael, with tears in his eyes, began to applaud enthusiastically, soon followed by everyone present. Emily stood up, her cheeks flushed with emotion and effort. Michael approached her, his hands moving quickly in signs. "It was the most beautiful thing I've ever experienced. You made me feel the music in a way I never imagined possible." Emily smiled, responding also in sign language. "You taught me to see the world in a new way. I just wanted to reciprocate, showing that I can understand and share your world too." At that moment, in front of their families, Michael did something unexpected. He took a small box from his pocket and knelt before Emily. Everyone held their breath, aware that they were witnessing something extraordinary. With gentle gestures, Michael signed, "Emily, our marriage may have started as an agreement, but it has become the greatest gift I could receive. You learned my language, entered my world, and made it brighter. Now, not as part of a contract, but with all my heart, I ask you, will you marry me?" The tears blurred Emily's vision, but her hands moved with clarity and determination as she responded, "Yes, Michael, 1,000 times yes." Michael slid the ring onto her finger, a delicate piece with a small diamond orchid symbolizing the beginning of their journey together. The families applauded, moved, as the couple embraced, sealing that moment with a tender kiss. Later, alone in the garden, Emily and Michael talked about the future. No longer an imposed future, but one they chose to build together. "You know," Emily signed, "I think I understand now why they say love is a universal language. It's not the words that matter, but what we feel, what we share." Michael smiled, writing in his notebook, "And we have our own symphony composed of gestures, looks, and hearts that beat to the same rhythm." Under the starry sky, Emily and Michael remained embraced, their hearts in perfect harmony, ready to compose the next chapters of their love story. A story that, although born from silence, would echo for all eternity. The eve of the wedding arrived with a mixture of excitement and serenity. The Johnson mansion was in a frenzy, with decorators, florists, and organizers running from one side to the other, putting the final touches for the big day. Emily, however, found a moment of peace in her old childhood bedroom. Sitting at her desk, she was leafing through a photo album that Michael had prepared especially for her. Each image told a part of their journey together, from the first shy encounters to the most recent moments, full of complicity and love. A soft knock on the door pulled her from her reverie. It was Amanda, her best friend and maid of honor. "Hey, bride," Amanda smiled, entering the room. "How are you feeling?" Emily closed the album carefully, a serene smile on her lips. "At peace, Amanda. It's strange, you know. A few months ago, I was terrified by the idea of this wedding. Now I can hardly wait for tomorrow to come." Amanda sat on the edge of the bed, observing her friend with affection. "You've changed, Em. You're lighter, happier. Love really transforms people, doesn't it?" "It's not just love," Emily replied, turning to face her friend. "It's understanding, acceptance. Michael taught me to see the world in a completely new way. Every gesture, every look gained a deeper meaning." The two friends spent the next hour reminiscing about childhood memories, laughing at old stories and sharing hopes for the future. Amanda, who initially had her reservations about the arranged marriage, now clearly saw how much Emily had blossomed alongside Michael. Meanwhile, at the Taylor mansion, Michael was having an emotional conversation with his father, Richard. Using sign language, which Richard had learned years ago to better communicate with his son, they discussed the meaning of that moment. "Son," Richard signed, his eyes shining with emotion, "when you were born, I was afraid that the world wouldn't understand your beauty, your strength. Now, I see you about to marry a woman who not only understands you, but has chosen to be part of your world. I couldn't be more proud." Michael smiled, his hands moving gracefully as he responded, "Emily showed me that love doesn't need sound to be heard, Dad. She learned to listen with her heart." Richard hugged his son, a gesture that was worth more than 1,000 words. When they separated, Michael picked up his favorite camera, the one that had accompanied him for years, capturing precious moments of Emily from a distance. "Tomorrow," he signed, "I'll start a new album, no longer from afar but by her side, capturing our story together." The night advanced, and in both houses the final preparations were being made. Emily, lying in her bed, couldn't sleep. She took her cell phone and sent a message to Michael. "I can't sleep thinking about you and tomorrow. Every moment we've spent together has made me sure that this isn't the end of a journey, but the beginning of something wonderful." Michael's response didn't take long. "Every second away from you seems like an eternity. I can't wait to start our life together. Sleep well, my love. Tomorrow, when you walk down the aisle, I'll be there, ready to embark on this adventure with you." Emily fell asleep with a smile on her lips, the cell phone still in her hands. Her dreams were filled with images of a bright future alongside Michael, a future where silence was full of meaning and love. At the Taylor mansion, Michael stayed awake a bit longer, organizing his cameras for the next day. He wanted to capture every moment, every emotion, but more than that, he wanted to live each second intensely, not just through the lenses, but with his heart open to this new phase that was beginning. When he finally lay down, Michael felt a deep peace. The fear he had once felt, that his silent world might be lonely, had completely dissipated. With Emily, he had discovered that the true sound of love came from the heart, and that was a sound they both could hear clearly. The night followed its course, the stars shining in the sky like silent witnesses to the love that blossomed between Emily and Michael. The dawn would bring not just a new day, but the beginning of a journey that promised to be as beautiful as it was unique, a symphony of love written in silence, but heard by all who had the privilege of witnessing it. The day dawned with a golden light that seemed to bless the occasion. The Johnson mansion, transformed into a fairy tale setting, was filled with white flowers and purple orchids, a special tribute to Emily and Michael's story. In the bride's room, Emily sat in front of the mirror while her mother and Amanda put the finishing touches on her hair and makeup. The dress, an elegant model that perfectly combined tradition and modernity, carefully awaited hanging up. "Are you nervous, darling?" asked Elizabeth, adjusting a rebellious strand of her daughter's hair. Emily smiled, her eyes shining with emotion. "Strangely, no. I feel a peace I've never experienced before. It's as if every moment of my life had led me to this day." Amanda, who was finishing applying a light lipstick to her friend's lips, couldn't hold back her tears. "Who would have thought, huh? From an arranged marriage to a modern fairy tale." The three women laughed, sharing a moment of complicity before the big moment. Meanwhile, in the wing reserved for the groom, Michael adjusted his tie with his father's help. Richard Taylor observed his son with a mixture of pride and emotion. "Son," Richard signed, "I remember the day you were born. I feared the world might be cruel to you. Today I see that you not only overcame every obstacle, but found someone who sees your true essence." Michael smiled, his eyes misty. With gentle gestures, he responded, "Dad, Emily taught me that love doesn't need words. She learned the language of my heart." Outside, the mansion's garden had been transformed into a dream setting. Rows of white chairs were arranged facing a flower-covered arch, where the couple would exchange their vows. In the center of the aisle, a path of white rose petals awaited the bride's passage. Guests began to arrive, a curious mixture of relatives, friends, and important figures from the business world. Many still didn't fully understand the dynamics between Emily and Michael, but everyone could feel the atmosphere of genuine love that hung in the air. Finally, the moment arrived. The soft music of a string quartet filled the air. Michael, accompanied by his father, took his place under the floral arch. His eyes shone with anticipation, alternating between the aisle where Emily would come and the hands of Mrs. Clara, the interpreter who would translate the vows for him. And then she appeared. Emily, radiant in her white dress, walked slowly down the aisle arm in arm with Robert. Her eyes, however, were fixed on Michael. Upon seeing him, a smile illuminated her face, and she felt as if the world around her disappeared, leaving only the two of them. Upon reaching the altar, Emily surprised everyone. Instead of simply taking Michael's hand, she began to sign. Michael, my love, when we met, I thought silence would be a barrier. Today I know it's our greatest connection. I promise to love you not just with words, but with every gesture, every look, every beat of my heart. Michael's eyes filled with tears of joy. He responded, his hands dancing in the air with grace and emotion. Emily, you taught me that love has many voices. I promise to listen to each one of them, to be by your side at all times, and to build a life where our silence is the most beautiful of symphonies. The officiant, visibly moved, continued the ceremony. When the time came to exchange rings, Emily and Michael placed them on each other, with hands trembling with emotion. I now pronounce you husband and wife, announced the officiant. You may kiss the bride. Michael and Emily drew close, their gazes overflowing with love. The kiss that sealed their union was soft, deep, and laden with promises for the future. The applause from the guests filled the air, many with tears in their eyes at the beauty of that moment. Flower petals were thrown over the couple as they walked back down the aisle, now as husband and wife. The reception that followed was a celebration of love, family, and breaking barriers. Guests made efforts to learn some basic signs, creating an atmosphere of inclusion and understanding. During the first dance, Michael surprised everyone, including Emily. Guiding her confidently across the dance floor, he showed that, even without hearing the music, he could feel its rhythm through the vibrations of the floor and the connection with his wife. At the end of the night, as the last guests were saying goodbye, Emily and Michael found themselves alone for a moment in the garden, illuminated by lanterns. Thank you, Emily signed, for teaching me that love doesn't need sound to be heard. Michael smiled, responding, and thank you for showing me that silence can be the most beautiful of music when shared with the right person. Under the starry sky, the couple shared another kiss, sealing the beginning of their journey together, a journey that promised to be as unique as the love they shared. The first months of marriage brought Emily and Michael a series of discoveries and adjustments. The couple had decided to live in their own house, away from their family's mansions, seeking to build their own space and routine. Emily, using her architectural knowledge, personally designed the renovation of a charming two-story house on the outskirts of the city. Every detail was thought out to create an environment that combined functionality and comfort, adapted to Michael's specific needs. A sunny Saturday morning found the couple in the kitchen of their new home. Emily was preparing breakfast while Michael organized his cameras for a photo shoot he would do later. Communication between them flowed naturally, a silent dance of gestures, looks, and gentle touches. Emily turned to Michael, signing with a smile. Remember the first time I tried to make pancakes for you? I almost set your parents' kitchen on fire. Michael laughed silently, his eyes sparkling with the memory. He responded, How could I forget? It was the first time. I saw my father truly impressed, not by the near catastrophe, but by your determination to learn to cook for me. The aroma of fresh coffee filled the air as they sat down to enjoy the meal. Emily watched Michael affectionately, noticing how he savored each bite, his eyes closed in appreciation. It was in these small moments that she realized how her perception of the world had expanded since she met him. After breakfast, Michael invited Emily to accompany him on his photo shoot. She accepted enthusiastically, always fascinated to see the world through her husband's lenses. They arrived at a nearby park, where nature displayed all its spring beauty. Michael began to photograph, his attentive gaze capturing details that would go unnoticed by many. Emily watched him, marveling at his ability to see beauty in the most unusual places. In a moment of pause, Michael turned to Emily, signing, You know, since we got married, my photography has changed. Before, I captured isolated moments. Now each photo seems to tell a complete story. Emily smiled, responding, It's because now you're not just observing life, you're living it fully. As they walked through the park, Emily noticed a group of children playing. Among them was a girl who used a hearing aid. The scene made her think about the future, about the possibilities that were opening up before them. That night, back at home, Emily decided to address a subject that had been hammering in her mind for some time. Michael, she signed, sitting next to him on the couch, I've been thinking, what do you think about us having children? Michael's eyes widened in surprise, but soon a warm smile spread across his face. He took Emily's hands in his before responding, "I would love to start a family with you, Emily, but I confess I have some fears. What if our child is born deaf like me? Or if they're hearing and feel out of place?" Emily gently squeezed Michael's hands, her eyes overflowing with love and understanding. "My love, if our child is deaf, they will have parents who will understand them perfectly and love them unconditionally. If they're hearing, they will grow up in a home where they'll learn that love transcends spoken words. In any scenario, they will be loved and understood." Michael was silent for a moment, his eyes misty with emotion. Finally, he signed, "You're right. Together we can offer a home full of love and understanding, regardless of any challenge we may face." That conversation marked the beginning of a new chapter in the couple's life. In the months that followed, Emily and Michael dedicated themselves to planning and preparing for the possibility of expanding the family. They attended lectures on parenting, read books, and talked with other couples in similar situations. One afternoon, while tidying up the room that could become a nursery, Emily found Michael standing by the window with a thoughtful look. "What are you thinking about?" she asked, approaching. Michael turned to her, a soft smile on his lips. "I'm thinking about how our life has changed since that first arranged meeting, how what seemed to be an insurmountable challenge has turned into the greatest blessing of my life." Emily hugged her husband, resting her head on his chest. She could feel the beats of his heart, a music that needed no words to be understood. At that moment, surrounded by the welcoming silence of their home and the love they had built together, Emily and Michael felt ready to face any challenge the future might bring. Their journey was far from over. In fact, they were just beginning to write the most exciting chapters of their lives. Autumn arrived, painting the trees with golden and reddish hues, bringing with it a cool breeze and the promise of changes. For Emily and Michael, this season marked not only the passage of time, but the beginning of a new and exciting journey. On a Saturday morning, Emily woke up feeling different. A mixture of intuition and hope made her get up earlier than usual. Silently, so as not to wake Michael, she went to the bathroom and took a pregnancy test she had bought days before. The minutes of waiting seemed like an eternity. When she finally looked at the result, her eyes filled with tears of joy. Positive, they would be parents. With her heart racing, Emily returned to the bedroom. Michael was still sleeping peacefully. She sat on the edge of the bed, admiring her husband's serene face, imagining how he would react to the news. Gently, she touched Michael's shoulder, waking him. When he opened his eyes, he found Emily with a radiant smile and tears of happiness. "Good morning, my love," she signed, her hands trembling slightly with emotion. "I have wonderful news for you." Michael sat up, immediately alert, his eyes full of curiosity and a touch of concern. Emily took Michael's hand and placed it on her still flat belly. With her other hand, she slowly signed, "We're pregnant." Michael's eyes widened, a mixture of surprise, joy, and a touch of apprehension passing across his face. He looked at the hand in contact with Emily's belly, then back to her eyes, seeking confirmation. Emily nodded, her smile widening. Even more. Michael pulled her into a tight embrace, silent tears running down his face. When they parted, his hands moved rapidly, expressing all the emotion he felt. "Emily, my love, this is amazing! A baby, our baby! I don't even know what to say. I'm so happy and at the same time so scared," Emily completed, understanding her husband's feelings perfectly. Michael nodded. "Yes, little. But more than that, I'm excited. We're going to be parents." The months that followed were a roller coaster of emotions and preparations. Emily and Michael decided to keep the news a secret for a few weeks, wanting to enjoy this special moment just between them, before sharing it with their families. During this period, the couple dedicated themselves to learning everything they could about pregnancy and parenthood. Michael especially immersed himself in research about child development and early communication methods for babies, determined to establish a strong connection with his son or daughter from the beginning. One afternoon, while organizing what would be the baby's room, Emily found Michael sitting on the floor, surrounded by books and informational pamphlets. "What are you doing?" she asked curiously. Michael looked up, a mixture of concentration and concern on his face. "I'm researching early auditory stimulation and language development in babies. I want to be prepared for all possibilities. Emily sat down beside him, putting her arm around his shoulders. Michael, I know you're worried, but remember what we talked about. Whether our baby is deaf or hearing, the most important thing is the love we'll give them. Michael smiled, nodding. You're right, it's just that I want to be the best father possible, regardless of the circumstances. And you will be, Emily assured him, kissing him softly. We both will be the best parents we can be. As Emily's belly grew, the couple developed new rituals. Every night, before going to sleep, Michael would place his hands on his wife's belly, feeling the baby's movements. He began to talk to the baby in sign language, telling stories and sharing his feelings. Emily, in turn, started singing to the baby, something that surprised Michael. I didn't know you sang, he signed one night, observing her with admiration. Emily blushed slightly. I was never very good at it, but I read that it's important for the baby's development to hear the mother's voice, and besides, she added with a mischievous smile, I want our son or daughter to know that in our family, everyone expresses themselves in their unique way. The arrival of winter brought with it the first ultrasound that would reveal the baby's sex. In the waiting room of the doctor's office, Emily and Michael could barely contain their anxiety. What do you think it is? Emily asked, her hands moving nervously. Michael smiled, his eyes shining with expectation. Honestly, it doesn't matter. I just want them to be healthy and happy. When the moment finally arrived, the couple entered the exam room hand in hand. Dr. Sophia, an experienced obstetrician who had been recommended for dealing frequently with couples in unique situations like theirs, greeted them with a warm smile. Ready to meet the new family member? She asked, making sure to sign simultaneously so Michael could follow. Emily lay down on the examination table, feeling the cold gel on her belly. Michael held her hand, his eyes fixed on the ultrasound screen. When the image appeared clear and sharp, they both held their breath. Dr. Sophia moved the transducer slowly, explaining each detail that appeared on the screen, and then with a smile she announced, Congratulations, Mom and Dad. It's a girl. The tears that Emily and Michael shed at that moment were of pure joy. They embraced, their hands moving in a dance of emotion, repeating several times, Our daughter, our little princess. Leaving the office with the first photo of their daughter in hand, Emily and Michael walked arm in arm, their hearts overflowing with love and expectation. The future, which once seemed uncertain and frightening, now shone with promises of joy and discoveries. That night, lying in bed, with their hands intertwined over Emily's belly, the couple dreamed of the future. A girl who would be the embodiment of their love, a living symbol of how barriers can be broken down, and how silence can be filled with the purest love. The following months passed in a whirlwind of emotions and preparations. Emily and Michael dove headfirst into preparing for their daughter's arrival, transforming the guest room into a cozy nursery. The walls were painted in soft shades of lilac and green, with a mural of trees and birds that Michael personally painted. One Saturday afternoon, while organizing the baby's newly washed clothes, Emily noticed Michael standing in front of the crib with a thoughtful look. What are you thinking about? She asked, approaching and wrapping her arms around her husband's waist. Michael turned, his eyes full of emotion. I'm thinking about how I'm going to communicate with her in the first few months. How will I know if she's crying during the night? Emily smiled gently, understanding her husband's concerns. Remember that light system we installed? It will flash when she cries. Besides, she added, taking Michael's hands, you have a sixth sense when it comes to perceiving others' needs. I'm sure you'll feel when she needs you. Emily's words brought comfort to Michael, but he still had his apprehensions. In the following weeks, he dedicated himself to learning everything he could about baby care, watching videos with captions and practicing diaper changing and feeding movements with a doll. As the due date approached, the couple decided to take a birthing preparation course adapted to their needs. The instructor, sensitive to their unique situation, incorporated visual and tactile elements into her classes, ensuring that Michael could fully participate. One night after one of these classes, Emily found Michael in his photography studio, fiddling with an old box. What are you doing? She asked curiously. Michael smiled, showing her the contents of the box. They were old photographs of him as a baby and child. I was thinking of creating an album for our daughter. showing our history, so she understands where she comes from and knows that no matter the challenges, there's always a way to overcome them. Emily felt her eyes fill with tears. It's a wonderful idea, love. Together, they spent the following hours selecting photos and creating the album. There were images of Michael learning sign language, of Emily in her first architecture projects, of the day they met, of the wedding. Each photo told a part of their journey to that moment. When they reached the last page of the album, Michael hesitated. "This page," he signed. "We'll leave for her first photo." The big day arrived 2 weeks earlier than expected. Emily woke up in the middle of the night, feeling the first contractions. With a mixture of excitement and nervousness, she touched Michael's shoulder, waking him. "It's time," she signed with a trembling smile. Michael's eyes widened, a mixture of fear and anticipation passing across his face. Quickly he got up, grabbing the bag they had prepared weeks before. At the hospital, the medical team was already prepared to attend to them. Dr. Sophia, who had followed the entire pregnancy, was on duty that night to the couple's relief. The following hours were intense. Michael remained by Emily's side the whole time, offering silent support through gentle touches and encouraging looks. When the contractions intensified, he massaged Emily's back, following the instructions they had learned in the birthing preparation classes. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the baby's cry filled the room. Michael, who couldn't hear the sound, felt the vibration in the air and saw the expression of pure joy on Emily's face. Dr. Sophia lifted the newborn, allowing the couple to see her for the first time. "Congratulations," she said, and signed simultaneously. "It's a beautiful and healthy girl." With tears in their eyes, Emily extended her arms to hold her daughter for the first time. Michael leaned in, gently touching the baby's tiny face. At that moment, all worries and fears dissipated. All that mattered was the small miracle in their arms. "Hello, Sophia," Emily whispered, remembering the name they had chosen together. Michael, observing Emily's lips, smiled as he saw his daughter's name being pronounced for the first time. In the days that followed, Emily and Michael adapted to their new routine with Sophia. The light system they had installed proved extremely useful, alerting Michael whenever the baby cried. But to the surprise of both, he often sensed Sophia's needs even before the lights came on, proving that the bond between father and daughter transcended the need for words or sounds. A week after Sophia's birth, Michael prepared a special photo session at home. With Emily holding the baby, he captured the first official portrait of the family, the perfect image to complete the album they had started. That night, with Sophia sleeping peacefully in her crib, Emily and Michael sat on the couch, leafing through the now complete album. On the last page, the new family photos smiled at them, a testament to the love they had built together. Michael looked at Emily, his eyes overflowing with emotion. "Thank you," he signed, "for giving me this family, this love. I never imagined I could be so happy." Emily smiled, tears of happiness in her eyes. "It's us who should thank you, my love. You taught us that love doesn't need sound to be heard." As the couple embraced, the silence of the night was filled with the love emanating from that small family. A love that spoke louder than any word. A love that promised to overcome any challenge the future might bring. The months that followed Sophia's birth were a mixture of joy, challenges, and discoveries for Emily and Michael. Each day brought a new experience, a new lesson about parenthood, and about how love can manifest itself in the most unexpected ways. One sunny morning, when Sophia was about 6 months old, Emily woke up to the sound of laughter coming from the baby's room. Intrigued, she got up silently and went to the door, peeking inside. The scene she found melted her heart. Michael was sitting on the floor with Sophia in his lap, making funny faces and gestures. The baby laughed uncontrollably, her little eyes shining with joy as she tried to imitate her father's movements. Emily watched, fascinated, as Michael began to make simple signs for Sophia. "Daddy," he signed, pointing to himself. "Mommy," signing and pointing to the door where Emily was. Sophia, with her infantile curiosity, tried to copy the movements, her little hands waving in the air. At that moment, Emily realized that her daughter was growing up in a world where communication went beyond spoken words. Sophia was naturally learning that there were many ways to express love and connection. As Sophia grew, it became clear that she was a special child. At 9 months, she was already responding to both Emily's voice and Michael's gestures with equal enthusiasm. Her babysitter, a young education student named Lisa, was impressed by the ease with which the girl alternated between verbal and non-verbal communication. "It's amazing," Lisa commented one day while watching Sophia play. "She seems to intuitively understand when to use gestures or sounds to communicate." Emily smiled, proud. "I think she's growing up with the best of both worlds." Sophia's first birthday was a celebration not only of her growth, but also of Emily and Michael's journey as parents. The party, held in the home garden, brought together close family and friends. During the celebration, Michael surprised everyone with a video he had prepared in secret. It was a montage of special moments from Sophia's first year, from her birth to that day. What made the video even more touching was the soundtrack, an original composition that Michael had created on the piano, guided by the vibrations and the emotion he felt when thinking about his daughter. There wasn't a dry eye when the video ended. Emily hugged her husband, moved, while Sophia, sitting in her high chair, clapped happily. As Sophia grew, new challenges arose. When she started attending daycare at 2 years old, Emily and Michael had to deal with the first questions and curious looks from other children and parents. "Why doesn't Sophia's dad talk?" a child innocently asked during a parent meeting. Emily and Michael exchanged a look, and it was Michael who took the initiative to respond. With Emily translating, he explained in a simple and loving way, "I do speak, but in a different way. I use my hands to form words, just as you use your mouths. It's just another way of saying I love you or have a good day." The children were fascinated, and soon Michael was giving a mini sign language lesson with everyone trying to learn simple words like hello and friend. At home, Sophia continued to surprise her parents with her adaptability. She naturally alternated between speech and signs, often mixing the two in a unique form of communication that was perfectly understood by both parents. One night, as they were putting Sophia to bed, the girl, now almost 3 years old, asked a question that caught Emily and Michael by surprise. "Mommy, Daddy," she said and signed simultaneously, "why do some people look at us differently when we're on the street?" Emily and Michael exchanged a look, knowing this moment would eventually come. Michael sat on the edge of the bed with Emily by his side. "Sophia, sweetheart," Emily began, speaking and signing at the same time. "All families are different and special in their own way. Ours is unique because we have our own way of communicating and loving each other." Michael added, "Some people may not immediately understand how we communicate, but that doesn't change how much we love and care for each other." Sophia seemed to reflect for a moment, then smiled. "I like our way," she said and signed. "It's like having a secret superpower." Emily and Michael laughed, moved by their daughter's innocent wisdom. That night, after Sophia fell asleep, the couple stayed awake, talking about the future. "She's amazing, isn't she?" Emily signed, her eyes shining with pride. Michael nodded, a soft smile on his lips. "She's the best of both of us, and she's growing up to be a compassionate and understanding person. You know," Emily continued, "sometimes I wonder if we're doing everything right, if we're adequately preparing her for the world out there." Michael took Emily's hands, looking into her eyes. "We're doing the best we can, with love and dedication. Sophia is growing up understanding that love and understanding can overcome any barrier. I think there's no more important lesson than that." Emily smiled, feeling reassured. Together they had built not just a family, but a home where love spoke in many languages, all equally powerful and beautiful. As they fell asleep, Emily and Michael knew that no matter what challenges the future might bring, they would face them together, with love as their universal language. Time passed quickly, and before Emily and Michael realized it, Sophia was turning 6 years old. The girl had become a lively, curious, and incredibly empathetic child, navigating with ease between her father's world of silence and her mother's world of sound. On the morning of Sophia's birthday, the family gathered in the kitchen for a special breakfast. Michael had prepared heart-shaped pancakes, while Emily decorated the table with colorful balloons. Sophia came running in, her eyes shining with excitement. It's today," she exclaimed aloud and in signs simultaneously, a skill she had perfected over the years. Emily hugged her, laughing. "Happy birthday, my love." Michael approached, holding a small package. He signed, "For you, Princess, open it." Sophia eagerly tore the gift wrap, revealing a children's digital camera. Her eyes widened in surprise and joy. "My own camera," she shouted enthusiastically. "Now I can take pictures like Daddy." Michael smiled, moved to see his daughter so happy with a gift that represented such an important part of his life. He knelt down to her level and signed, "With this camera, you can capture all the special moments you see. Remember, the best photos are those taken with the heart." The day was full of celebrations. In the afternoon, Sophia's school friends came for a party in the backyard. It was a touching scene to see how the other children had naturally adapted to the family's unique dynamic. Many of them already knew basic signs and communicated cheerfully with Michael. During the party, Emily noticed something that made her stop and observe carefully. Sophia was teaching a group of friends how to take photos with her new camera. What caught Emily's attention was the way her daughter explained. She spoke and signed at the same time, ensuring that everyone understood, including a little friend who wore a hearing aid. At that moment, Emily felt a wave of pride and emotion. Sophia wasn't just growing up, she was becoming a bridge between worlds, uniting people in ways that Emily and Michael could only have dreamed of. At night, after the party, when all the guests had gone home, the family gathered in the living room. Sophia, exhausted but happy, was showing the photos she had taken during the day. "Look, Daddy," she signed excitedly. "I took a picture of you teaching my friends to sign happy birthday." Michael looked at the photo, his eyes filling with tears of joy. It was a powerful image. Him surrounded by smiling children, all with their hands raised, imitating his gestures. Emily joined them on the couch, hugging Sophia. "You took wonderful photos, sweetie. I think we have a talented photographer in the family." Sophia yawned, fatigue finally catching up with her. "Mommy, Daddy," she said and signed sleepily, "thank you for the best birthday. I love you." As they took Sophia to bed, Emily and Michael exchanged looks full of love and gratitude. After putting her to sleep, they returned to the living room, sitting together on the couch. "She's amazing, isn't she?" Emily signed, leaning back on Michael's shoulder. Michael nodded, a soft smile on his lips. He took his notepad and wrote, "Sophia is living proof that love can transcend any barrier. She teaches us every day about acceptance and understanding." Emily read the words, feeling her heart fill with emotion. "You know," she signed, "sometimes I wonder what our life would be like if we hadn't gone through that arranged marriage, if we hadn't given each other a chance." Michael reflected for a moment before responding, "I believe fate brought us together for a reason, perhaps to show the world that true love doesn't need words to be expressed." That night, lying in bed, Emily and Michael mentally reviewed the past years. From the first nervous encounter to that moment, with a wonderful daughter and a love that only grew each day. They had faced challenges, of course, but each obstacle overcome only strengthened their bond. Before falling asleep, Michael gently touched Emily's face, his eyes conveying all the love he felt. Emily smiled, perfectly understanding the silent message. In the room next door, Sophia slept peacefully, her dreams populated by colorful images and dancing hands. In her small mind, there was no distinction between the world of silence and the world of sounds. There was only love, understanding, and the beauty of a family that had learned to communicate with the heart. As the night progressed, the Johnson-Taylor house rested in a comfortable silence, filled with the silent echoes of love, acceptance, and the promise of a bright future for a family that had redefined the meaning of communication and connection.